morning, chat. How are we doing today on this wonderful Monday afternoon? I hope everybody's having a good start to their week. I know I am, because I've been waiting to do this stream for a long time now. Today, we are bringing back Breakfast Analysis Live. We are going over Osa and all her horrible fucking problems. This will be my thesis statement, my final university paper on the worst operator, not the worst, but probably second worst operator on Attack and Rainbow Six Siege. I hope everyone's doing well today. What's going on? Savitar, first one in chat. Pineapples. I'm not running the mini siege. Let me start it real quick for you so that your commands will work. Run the Python code. Should work now. What's up, JL? Axaya, glad to see everyone here. Justin, keep that energy on the low, please. What's up, Jel? Do I like war hards? Did you mean to say warheads? Like the candy? I don't know what war hards are. The warhead candy, I don't mind. I'm not like a huge fan. I don't have them, like, all the time. But, like, yeah. They're, like, really sour, right? They're okay. I like sour food. I wouldn't, like, eat them, like, regularly. Wouldn't call myself a fan. Yesterday, the Brazilian... I did not stream yesterday. I said I would. I lied to you. I just didn't think I had anything good to stream, to be honest. I missed the Brazil stage, the Brazil Element 3, the Brazil Tier 2 tournament because I was watching Dota. Honestly, one of the worst grand finals I've ever watched in Dota. Quick 3-0 for Gaming Gladiators. Was not worth it. But I am happy that Liquid lost. So I think there were some results in Brazil. I actually have not checked. Dude, why is it now that I fucking boot up Twitter and the first thing to come on is like fucking Jordan B. Peterson retweeting his conversation with Elon Musk? What am I searching for? Oh yeah, R6 Esports Brazil. I think these were the games yesterday that I missed. W7M 7-2'd some rando team. Vivo Keydstars 7-3'd some random team. Black Dragon 7-3'd some random team. And Fluxo got a 7-0 over some random team. I actually do know Ellis. Ellis is like probably the best team of these four. So that's kind of a surprising 7-0. But like the difference between... Oh, I just realized my fucking... Sorry about that. The difference between a 7-3 and a 7-0 is not that big. I actually do need to... That's actually a good reminder. I need to put this fan on my camera. Give me a sec. It's not a very powerful fan. But it can shoot straight upwards, which is what I want. So I can put it under my camera. Like so. Like, hold on. Like so. There. And that should keep us from crashing for the whole stream. I doubted Fluxo. Look at me now. Yeah, I don't know if I doubted Fluxo against Ella's. Am I streaming Element 3 this week? Yes, sir. I am. Should be live for every Element play day. I believe Element is live Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Is that correct? It's in my calendar. What's up, Genter? Jail, why did you just ask me if I liked Warheads, and then you never followed it up on it? That's just a fact you wanted to know? I mean, fair enough if so. E3 is tomorrow? Yes. E3 is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, then. That sounds right. The G2 Navi CSGO game was peak. CSGO is doing their Gamers 8, right? They're doing their Esports World Cup. Navi beat G2 in the Grand Finals. It's still baffling to me that CS Grand Finals are always best of 3. I don't think CS ever does BO5s. Actually, I think some third-party tournaments do. But, like, the important tournaments are always BO3 finals. Historically. Ancient went to overtime. Nuke and Inferno were both 13-6. G2 didn't get a single round in the second half. That's tough. And then this one, they just kind of got shit on first half. Is Simple on a team anymore? My CS knowledge is certainly lacking. I know Simple's not on Navi. I remember that. Is he on any team? Simple is currently inactive on Navi. Why is he not playing anymore? Did he felled off? Argentina. All right. Bro is playing on Canada's downside. Oh no, he's a Trump supporter too. Well, maybe he's a Kamala supporter. Actually, we can't say for sure. Maybe it was a loan or something. Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. All right. I'm glad you're on top of it, Axton. I'm not. Don't you notice how I get quiet when there's no one else around me? He hates CS2? Well, I don't know that a lot has gone on over the last week. I won't lie to you. It's mostly been tier 2 stuff. There's not really been any spicy roster moves. I do want to go over some of the news that One has been collecting for us. What's the biggest letdown? Did we go over this already? What do you think the biggest... I realize this is 26 days ago, but we're going to go over it anyways. What do you think the biggest letdown in Pro League history has been? He's saying the core of XSET breaking up after the last event. Because they had a lot of potential and gas left. Is this guy crazy? New M80 is so much better than old M80. I don't think it's close. Old M80 won like one map through Did old M80 win one map through 3 tournaments? 3 official tournaments? Or is it just 2? Because at SI, they won 1 map. At SI, they took 1 map off Bleed. In Atlanta, I don't believe they won a map. They didn't win a single map in Atlanta. I think they won 1 in Copenhagen, right? Oh, no, they won 2. And then they beat Eminem on 1. All right, so they won 1 series through 3 series. That's what it was, not 1 map. That's what tripped me up. Realistically, they dropped Noodle first. Isn't that the rumor that they have dropped Noodle? Or am I smoking crack? I thought the Noodle was M80R dropping Noodle. That could have been fake. I think it was a Drip Boolin tweet. Yeah, okay. Justin already put it in chat. Yeah, Dripbulin's info is usually pretty good. It's just always possible that he's just lying for Twitter likes. But I think he's kind of past that phase. Isn't his Twitter like literally locked down right now? Dripbulin. Yeah, I mean, he's literally on private Twitter, so. Who would M80 pick up? Fuck if I know, man. Gio is probably the best free agent right now. Technically, he's not free agent, right? Because technically, he's still... Technically, he's still under contract with Sonics, I think. I think he's still under contract with Sonics, so you know, free agent might not be the right term. He's probably the best player not on a team, at least in North America. Maybe they grab Bibu. But they could go younger as well. Just try to pick up some prodigy. I'm not surprised they... I don't know. I really don't like them making changes. My philosophy has always been for Rainbow Six teams that, like, first and foremost, your goal should be win the Six Invitational. And I think the best formula for winning the Six Invitational is stage 1, you make your roster. Depending on how stage 1 goes, maybe you make roster changes. And then, like, in the summer, you solidify that roster, ideally early in the summer, and then you grind that roster. And you don't want to make too big changes either. Now, technically, this is within the purview of the summer. They're making one small change in the summer. So maybe it's not that big of a deal, but it's pretty late into the summer. And they were also still a top 8 team in Manchester. Like, making a roster move doesn't guarantee you move up in the world. Just ask Oxygen. Right? There have been plenty of examples of teams making moves and then just falling off a cliff. Whereas, like, if you stick together, there's a pretty high chance that you will get better. Right? There's a very high chance. Like, you're almost guaranteed to improve. Maybe you won't improve at the rate you want to. Maybe you won't improve enough to win SI. But I just think making a roster move this late into the season is very risky. And I think if you're M80, like, you want to win this year. Like, you're spending the fucking money for it. The goal should be win SI this year. Talon SI 2025 confirmed. Like, I like what Talon are doing with their roster. You know, I'm not saying this is a direct formula for guaranteed success, but I think that successful teams in the past have followed that kind of a formula. If they've not stuck together for longer. W7M, for example. But yeah. M80 will do anything but allow a Democrat or Republican on the team. JFK Jr. lining up as the 5th fragger for M80. I'm here for it. What's his name? Robert F. Kennedy? I guess it's not JFK Jr. That's not his fucking name. All right, anyways, the biggest letdown conversation, if we want to go back to that, it probably was Team Empire getting dropped out of Tier 1 for a full year. Ras catching COVID and missing SI. Yeah. Team Empire have had a fucking tough go of it. We'll see how this take ages. I've made my thoughts on G2 very clear many times. But I think it's too early to call this a letdown. This as a FaZe fan would be fucking crazy letdown. That's fair. FaZe Clan losing after going down or up 6-1. Yeah. I think this is an insane take from Toronto Will. Citizen is your biggest letdown? I don't know. Citizen, especially on M80 recently, has been doing very well. Maybe you could say Citizen on Sonics, but I don't even think so. Honestly, I think a lot of the potential for something that wasn't mentioned there, I think a lot of the potential for Astralis players after the org pulled out was a pretty big disappointment. You know, SI in 2023 had Iconic, J90, Shuttle, Forest, and Spiff. J90 went on to continue to have a great career and play really, really well. This team obviously got top 4 at SI. The roster then disbanded. The org dropped them. J90 went on to have a good career. Forest is still on a good team, but is probably currently underperforming on that team. Shuttle, Spiff, and Iconic all dropped off the face of the planet. Iconic's been given chances, but has been playing really bad since Astralis. Shuttle and Spiff. I guess Spiff is trialing for a wildcard now. He did a stage, you know, he played on a couple of bad teams, got 8th and 9th in the NAL. Shuttle... Yeah, Shuttle just never found another team. What is Shuttle doing these days? Guys, he's LFT. As of over a year ago, he was looking for a team. So, fair to say he's LFT. Nah, bro just retired, and that's fair, but... Send Shuttle the BBC offer. Listen, I think he'd be a great addition. The problem is we just don't have the space. We've already got 5 insane gunners. I don't know how we could even fit him in. You know, who would we drop? That's the question. Biggest letdown was Demo and Kia to SI 2022 playoffs. Void, why do you have to wait 20 minutes for the OSA thing? Because I want to chat with you first. Nah, I think the Empire is the right answer. Because literally they were so dominant. Undoubtedly one of the greatest teams of all time, and then they just have to spend a full year rebuilding for no reason. You know, for shitty org-related reasons. Do we have any examples of how Bleed is doing these days? We never really talked about the Bleed roster move when it happened. Do we have any, like, concrete example of how it's gone? I guess they qualified for World Cup with Leader on the team. Do we also know where Leader is living? Feels like normal Bleed scorelines, though. Like, you drop map 1 to Fury, and then you win out the series. That's pretty basic stuff for Bleed. That happens literally every time. I don't think they've played any games outside of EWC quals, though, right? Recent matches, yeah. Technically, they have yet to lose a series with Leader on the team. I imagine that changes when we get to Esports World Cup, but you never know. Maybe they go undefeated. They'd have to beat, they'd have to beat Wolves, then FaZe Clan. One of those teams is beatable, and then quarters, semis, and grands. Yeah, we'll see. I think it's so stupid that you can literally make quarterfinals of the Esports World Cup by winning 2 best-of-1s. Like, what? Like, imagine you're fucking Team Liquid. You have to beat PSG Talon and then, like, Luminosity, most likely, to just get top 8, which is a guaranteed $80,000. That's absurd. Same for FaZe Clan. Like, beat Scars in a BO1 and then beat, like, Bleed or Wolves in a BO1. Like, I don't know. It's not free, but that's maybe the quickest and easiest 80 grand Liquid and FaZe will ever make. The whole tournament feels so rushed. I don't know. We've talked about it a lot, but it feels really, really rushed, the whole tournament for EWC. I feel like they're not putting enough effort into it. I don't know. Effort might not. They're not just, I don't know. I just don't think they care about it compared to the other games. Yeah, Esports World Cup, I would at this point consider it to be like equivalent to a major. Especially now that we don't have a major in the summer. I just like that, like, throughout Rainbow Six history, every single year, except for COVID, you can count on 3 S-tier tournaments followed by SI. Right? I like that consistency. We can always say, here are the 3 champions, and then here's the world champion for the year. Year 1, you had Penta Youngtis Continuum, crowned off by Continuum. Year 2, you had Penta Penta Ents, crowned off by Penta. Year 3, you had Liquid G2 G2, crowned off by G2. Year 4, you had Empire Empire Na'Vi, crowned off by SSG. Year 5, you had COVID, crowned off by NIP. Year 6, you had Team 1 and FaZe with a little bit of COVID, crowned off by TSM. Year 6, you had DZ. And then it's a little awkward because there's Gamers 8 and the Berlin Major, but I think we just ignore the first Gamers 8 because it fits my narrative of what I want. So we have Dark Zero Rogue BDS into World Champion G2. And then year 8, you have W7M, BDS, W7M, capped off by W7M. I like that parity, and so I'm willing to count in 2023 and 2024 Gamers 8 as like a equivalent to a major. M80 did not make Esports World Cup, yeah. So it seems as though they're dropping Noodle. Which, I mean, Noodle probably is the one to drop. Is there anybody else who maybe makes sense to drop off that team? Spoit will never be dropped for the history of his entire life. Citizen played really well, I think, this stage. He shouldn't be dropped. You're probably debating between Kino, Cameraman, and Noodle. Cameraman is the primary IGL, so that probably puts him into the safety range, and then it's probably Noodle or Kino. And I know the community loves to hit on Kino, but I do genuinely think Kino played better than Noodle in Stage 1. I think Kino had more of an impact. And he is their shield player, and Rainbow Six Siege in 2024, you just need a good shield player. And say what you want about Kino's shield plays, he is still a good shield player. Hot Take Furia won't win anything anymore because they lost the org buff. I don't know if it's the org buff, but I do think they've lost... I think they've lost a sense of motivation. I mean, they literally won the greatest grand finals of esports, like, in esports history, probably. Like, you think these guys care anymore? Like, what can they do to top that? Nothing, in my mind. And, like, I'm sure they do care. You know, like, they obviously got top 8 at the major. Like, they're not trying or anything. But, like, I feel like that would suck at least a bit of motivation out of literally anybody. You know? The meta shifted? Yeah, it did. But the meta was also shifting for a large part of, well, I don't know. You're right, the meta shifted, but I think motivation still had a big factor in them losing that game. Like, they play Liquid in the quarterfinals. Once they start going down on Chalet, especially after such a brutal Nighthaven Labs that they had to fight tooth and nail for, and Cafe for that matter. I don't know. I don't think a Furia from 3 months ago loses Chalet like this. But that's just my take. Geo would do better than Kino. Yeah, but Geo would want to IGL and control the team. Geo can play a shield just like Kino can, but Geo's not really taking Kino's role, he's taking Cameraman's role. And I mean, Gio and Cameraman are both very experienced, very strong IGLs. Cameraman probably has a bit more pedigree, but he's also like old man. He's probably not as good as an individual as Gio is. It's probably close. But again, like, I don't want to see M80 making a major change. They're a top 8 team in the world. Like, now is not the time to be gutting your whole roster and picking up a bunch of random new players, you know? Now's the time for, like, one small change, maybe. And even that I'm kind of against, but we'll see who they pick up. And grind for SI. Your takes are pretty horrible. All right. Understandable. Thank you, Flynn. You didn't IGL TSM. Why would he need to IGL? I guess he doesn't need to IGL. I'm thinking it more from the perspective of, like, he was dropped from Sonics because he was trying to take control of and lead that team in a way that specifically Super and the Sonics didn't really want. And I imagine if Gio were to rejoin a new team, he would also want to take a large role in terms of defining, like, the identity and the, you know, taking control of the team. I think Gio is like a very loud voice, like similar to like Canadian, right? Like, you can't just throw Canadian on a team and expect him not to take over. And maybe Gio's not to the same extent. But I think even on that TSM team, Gio probably had a lot of input, you know? JesseJChick.M80. Now we're thinking. Ban that guy? That Flynn guy? Please, yeah, if you could. Look, it's the most confusing team to me. They look like the best team in existence one day and a tier 3 team later. I mean, Liquid have gone through a lot of roster changes, right? Liquid have been shuffling their team around quite a bit. They had, you know, they picked up Volps after they dropped. Like, I think the new era of Liquid, I feel, really started when Ask and Resets joined. When they dropped Sexy Cake and Moringa, picked up Ask and Resets, that to me felt like a brand new Liquid was born. But since then, you know, they've not been very consistent. Like, both Ask and Resets joined, and they weren't particularly great when they first joined the team. They changed out coaches. Then they picked up Lagonis. Maybe that's more of an influential turning point. That was also a really big turning point for them when they got Lagonis. Because, again, they brought in, like, a very young IGL, similar to what FaZe Clan did. And they put a lot of faith in him. And initially, it didn't go very well, but they've continued to put trust in him, and I think he's gotten a lot better. Eventually, they replaced Ask with Volps. Then they replaced Volps with Maya, and now we're here with Maya on the roster. And I think this is honestly the best iteration of Liquid since like before Ask and Resets joined. Like, I think the Team Liquid that plays right now is the best Team Liquid. I guess their performance in Copenhagen was pretty good, actually. But this felt like a blip to me. I don't know. This, to me, this Copenhagen major team, they just, like, they just fell off a cliff so quickly after this. After this tournament, they just completely fell to shit. And they didn't have their team for very long before this tournament, right? It was just SI, I think, with Volps on the roster. No, they didn't even have Volps. Yeah, is this the only tournament they played with Volps? I guess Stage 2 and SI. It was the only good tournament they played with Volps. So they're only, like, strong. It was the first tournament they played with him, and then they never really played well again. So, like, I don't know. To me, this kind of feels like a blip in the pan, like an anomaly. In Yongshiping, they did well as well. I think we're definitely seeing the best Liquid that we've seen since Yongshiping. The Yongshiping roster was pretty legit. I got nothing bad to say about the roster that went to Yongshiping, and I think it was the same roster as Gamers 8, right? Yongshiping is Ask Resets Lagonis. Did Gamers 8 have Lagonis? No, he didn't. It's a PSK. I don't know. I like the way Liquid are playing. I think Liquid are going to be very scary this year. I don't think they'll win anything because they are serious chokers. And I don't expect that to change. But I think over the last year, I think between Copenhagen and Manchester, they were a very bad team. They were just not a top 8 team in the world. Very bad by Liquid standards. I mean, they were still maybe top 20 in the world, but now they look like an actual serious contender to make and win grand finals. They won't because they're chokers, but they could contend. Is there any credible reliability to the idea that Geo would be the one replacing Noodle? Does anybody have a link to the Reddit thread? Oh, I found it. Yo? JL made it into the Reddit thread? No, I don't think there's any... No, there's no credible... no credible information as to who they would pick up for replacement of Noodle. It's all speculation. Like, it could be Geo, but I don't know. I don't know if Geo is the right pick. Is the drop official? No. It's not official, but typically those are pretty reliable. Is there a page where you can see teams on maps performances? No. You can look at my spreadsheets, but unfortunately there's not. CGG continues to be down, by the way. It's just a Valorant news website now. Very frustrating. I want to make my own fucking Siege stats website. I said this last week on stream. If CGG doesn't come back with their data and I can somehow get the data from them, I would host it on a webpage. And try to make it accessible for people. Because there's no way hosting a webpage can be that expensive, right? Actually, no, JL is right. If you wanted to know, Liquipedia is actually pretty good. Okay, let's say you want to see how Liquid do on Nighthaven Labs. You go to Liquipedia, you type Liquid, you click on them. You go to head-to-head, and then you leave everything else blank. You change maps to say Nighthaven Labs. Then you run query, and you can see every game. It doesn't give you a great summary. It kind of does, actually. 4 wins and 4 losses since the map came out, according to Liquipedia. The one problem I do have with this is, for example, on this, it shows this game, but Nighthaven Labs was the decider, and it was a 2-0, so Liquid didn't actually play Nighthaven Labs in this game, which is kind of annoying. So you have to, manually ignore these, which is, annoying. You also can't tell, Liquid won this series 2-1, but you have to expand it to see if they actually won the map or not. Turns out they did. But yeah, this is probably your best, at-a-glance tool. See, here's a good example. Liquid won the series 2-1, but they lost Labs 8-7. And you can put filters on it for, specific tournaments or, date ranges. You wish someone worked on an API that pulled stats from the game directly or match replay. You had this, but they changed the UI. Did you just have your machine basically watch a stream and pull information visually? Is that what you were doing? Because I paid Axon to do... I don't know if I actually paid him. But Axon was working on that for a little bit. And then we decided it was too hard. Give me 1 second. I'm going to fill up my water. I'll be right back. And then you know what time it is. Buck is a flex op. Like what? No, flex player does not play Buck every round. Yes, they do. You guys are having problems with definitions. Neither of you are wrong. The problem is in Rainbow Six Siege, roles are so loosely defined that it's going to be different for every team. There are players that run Buck almost full time. And there are teams that have 4 different players playing Buck depending on who's free. You know, different teams are going to work different ways. Neither of you are wrong. That is very interesting. And if you get it working for current Siege and old Siege and also historical Siege, I'd pay you for that. All right, it is time. It's time for the Osa hate. Without any further ado, chat. Good morning and welcome. Wait, hold on. Good morning and welcome, chat, to Breakfast Analysis Live, where we will be breaking down a variety of different topics. And today, we're talking about the one operator that I talk about on my stream more than any other. If you've been viewing the stream for a while, you know the operator that I cannot stand when pro teams use is none other than Osa. Every time I see an Osa get played, I feel like it's not getting good value out of the utility, it's losing the round, it's struggling to have any impact, and yet pro teams continue to play this operator non-stop like it's the best op in the game. Maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but we do see a lot of Osa get played, and I have found that it's not a very successful operator. So today, I wanted to run a analysis stream on Osa, because I'm not perfect. Maybe Osa is really good. I haven't looked at the numbers. I haven't done a deep dive until now. So I've done the Osa deep dive, and I'm here to present to you my findings. Now, I approached this by making 5 questions that I wanted to answer to start off about Osa. Question 1, is Osa actually bad? Because although I watch a lot of games and I tend not to see very many successful Osa pushes, I can be biased. Maybe I'm just not watching the right regions. Maybe I'm not watching the right players. So question 1, very simple. We're going to do our best to answer. Is Osa actually bad? Question 2, which bomb sites, if any, is Osa viable on? Osa is extremely bomb site specific. She's not a generalist operator that can be brought all the time. So I'm going to be using data and statistics to try to figure out which operators Osa is best on and which operators Osa is sorely overused. Question 3. What are the primary things that counter Osa? And obviously, there are some, C4's impacts. I'm sure we can name a few to come up with. But by watching a lot of different Osa rounds, I'm hopeful that we can get a real comprehensive list and understand not just utility-wise, but what type of playstyles make Osa fail the most. Question 4, a philosophical question, if you will. How should we buff Osa? If we were Ubisoft, if I could give my recommendations to Tom Clancy himself, how would we change this operator? And question number 5, who is the best Osa player in the world? So that's what we're going to be diving into today. We're talking all about Osa. All of these questions will be answered by the end of the stream, so I hope that you enjoy. Now, if you know anything about me, you know I hate Osa. If you know a second thing about me, you know that I love statistics. I love my numbers. I love my maps. I love my data. I love math. So the number one thing I'm going to do when I go to ask the question, is Osa bad? So I'm going to look at the numbers. So I went in and I compiled all the numbers from the Manchester Major. And as it turns out, of all attacking operators, Osa was played fewer than most, but had only a 39% win rate in the Manchester Major. Well below the average from an attacking operator, which sits around 43%. Sample sizes are important here. I have included that with the data. You know, we got Collie all the way at the bottom there who only got played
this is
5 times.
This is beans. Someone put beans inside the computer.
Thank you for the gifted sub, Ender. 5 times, 100% win rate. That doesn't mean Collie's the best operator in the game. Likewise, Blackbeard was brought 5 times, but only won once, so a 20% win rate. These win rates can't be taken as pure fact, but I do think they paint a pretty good picture. I mean, down here at the bottom, you see Monty at the very high end of things. You see operators like Sledge, who's very outclassed, Fuse, Glaz, more gimmicky operators towards the top. So, okay, maybe it's not 100% saying that Osa's the worst op in the game. There's plenty of useful operators even ranked higher than Osa, like Jackal and Brava, but it is an indication that she's bad. Maybe you're sitting here thinking, Jesse, I'm not a fucking comp player. Right? I can still play Osa in my ranked games just because pro players are good at countering Osa. In my ranked games, I love playing Osa and I'm really good with her. But the numbers are even worse for ranked players. Looking at year 1, season 3, or the most recent, year 9, season 1, my bad. Year 9, season 1, the most recent pool of data, Osa had the lowest win rate of every single attacking operator in PC. Just an abysmal win rate overall at about -2%. Obviously, the sample size is way larger for ranked, so it's going to be smaller margins, but still Osa ranking dead last in ranked and very low when it comes to competitive allows me to answer our first question. Yeah, Osa is bad. It's not just the fact that I've been watching games where she's playing poorly. It's not just the idea that, yeah, maybe sometimes certain strategies aren't working out. Across the board, Osa's win rate is very poor. So I'm not going crazy. In general, Osa's bad. Osa's stats from year 1, season 3 would be a lot worse. I heard she didn't win a single round in any format year 1, season 3, but I didn't track that data, so I wouldn't say 100%. Now, we know Osa's not great, but she's also not an operator that is played on every single bomb site. She's an operator that you expect to see only on certain sites. And so when I looked through the data of the Manchester Major specifically, I identified 5 key sites where Osa is brought at least 3 times. That was my cutoff. It is kind of arbitrary, but every other bomb site that Osa was brought, she was only brought once or twice, and when she was brought twice, it was typically by the same team. So I'm looking specifically at bomb sites where Osa was brought by multiple different teams so that we can accurately judge, is this a strategy with Osa that's actually good on its own, or is it just that a good team is playing it? So before we jump into the big 5, I'll show you the rest of the data. These are all Osa appearances from the Manchester Major outside of the top 5 bomb sites. And as you can see, most of them are pretty terrible on the win rate. The only bomb sites outside of the ones I'm calling the top 5, the big 5, that had Osa wins were Bank Open Area, where she was brought once and won once, and Nighthaven Basement. And at the end of this small segment, I want to be able to tell you a list of operators I think Osa is good or viable on, but I want to put an asterisk onto Nighthaven Basement, because while I'm not going to include it on my final list, I think it is a bomb site that has potential for Osa. During the Manchester Major, the only team that ran this bomb site was Beast Coast. They're the best team in the world, at least at that major, and so it makes sense that they're going to be able to find success with the operator. It's hard to really analyze and tell, though, if that's actually a bomb site where Osa is more effective than your traditional strategy, or if Beast Coast are just really good at Nighthaven Labs. And I can tell you for a fact, they are really good at Nighthaven Labs. So for that reason, we're not going to be digging a deep dive on Nighthaven Labs Basement for Osa. If there's a single bomb site that you expect to see Osa on, and it's not on this list right here or in the next 5 bomb sites that we look at, that means not a single pro team thought she was worthwhile bringing on those bomb sites, at least at the most recent major, so she's probably not that good. So of the big 5, the first one I want to look at is going to be the bomb site that initially led me to believe that Osa is kind of a terrible operator. This is the bomb site I would always watch in competitive. It's, I think, the first bomb site that really gained traction with Osa, and I've never liked this push. Of course, I'm talking about Armory Locker's archives on Border. This is the bomb site where Osa got brought, I think, initially the most. Currently, it had, I believe, the third most plays in the Manchester Major for any bomb site where Osa was brought. And it's a classic. We all know what this push is. It is an old photo. I know. I couldn't find a scenic photo of new Armory Lockers Archives, so this is from the release trailer. Bear with me. I was hoping you wouldn't notice. It's fine. So what are the stats for Osa on Armory Lockers and Archives? Well, they're pretty bad. Osa was brought 6 times, but only once did Osa actually successfully attack this bomb site. 1 win and 5 losses. So we're gonna bring in some clips from this bomb site and kind of talk about why things are going well or why they're going poor. I want to show you a very typical push with Osa, just in case you don't know what this style of push typically is like. So this is a push from Lagonis when they were playing against SSG. Notice the double Claymore to try to stop a jump out from the radio window. You've got an Osa barricade initially being brought to try to get into the bomb site. Lagonis then pulls out a second shield, which you can see him pulling out now, and he uses this second shield to kind of push in, so he eventually gets sandwiched between the 2 shields. So he's super protected from somebody jumping out at him, and he's got the shield in front of him to stop himself being shot as he goes for this execute. Note that Maya, another player from Team Liquid, is playing out on the window, and then he pushes on in with his shield, and you see it working. This is the angle that you expect the defense to use to stop this push in, but the shield actually saves Lagonis' life, and he's able to get in instead. Fault starts to prep, one of the biggest counters of Osa, which we will talk about soon. That's the C4. So this is a generalized setup of Osa. This is how it typically gets set up on this bomb site. This is typically what teams will do. It's a very standard, basic Osa push on the top floor of Porter. Now, we'll come back to some rounds where things don't go so well. And as you can see here, it's getting countered by a C4. I don't know if this one actually... Yeah, okay, it did destroy the shield. So one of the biggest counters to Osas are explosives. And this is a huge problem on the border top floor bomb site. I want to show you another round between Dark Zero and BDS when Canadian tries to do this same strategy. And although it starts really good, look how many explosives BDS bring because they expect this push. 2 C4s and 4 impacts. And when you can deal, especially when you can deal with the player that's on the window, this push is really, really tough to pull off. Watch how BDS stop this Osa push from Canadian. Canadian tosses in his util, he starts to move forward, he's got NJR in the cover, but the C4 comes out to kill NJR, and then Shaiko with an impact comes out, kills Canadian. This is bog standard. This happens all the time with defenders on this bomb site. They'll run the C4s, they'll run the impacts. That was a particularly beautiful way to do it from BDS, where they distracted NJR with the C4, then Shaiko came and swung, then they got the kill onto Canadian with the impact from Shaiko. But again, this happens in all shapes and forms. It's very, very common, and it counters this push a lot. The other big problem that Osa has on this bomb site is that border as a map is extremely attacker-sided. So that means the defense are often taking a lot of steps early in the round where they're trying to get a leg up before the attackers can set up. And Osa isn't particularly good at stopping those. In fact, with the shield in her hand, she's really bad at stopping, say, spawn peeks or other aggressive moves from the attackers. And multiple times when I was watching clips of Osa on this bomb site, something like this would happen, where the round would start and the defense would come out and just make an aggressive move. Sometimes it was a run out like this one. Sometimes it was a little bit later in the round where aggression would come out, but it takes out a key operator. And the thing about this push is if you do not have everything perfectly in place, if you don't got your smokes lined up for the push, if you don't have somebody covering on the window, if you don't have everything going to plan, like control of the bottom floor, the Osa push gets a lot weaker. So in this round, immediately a runout happens, they lose their glass, a critical piece of the round. But it's not just that can come out from aggression. Remember those claymores that Lagonis was placing back on the window? If those are placed incorrectly, or if they're placed a little bit farther forward and some of the defense tries to take advantage of that, well, it can also be a huge counter to this classic Osa push. As we see through the rest of this push, by trying to put the claymore under the radio window, Miracle opens himself up to get run out by Fish Guy, and now the complete push has fallen apart. Not only can the Glaz not help out with the execute, but even Miracle himself goes down to some aggression before this push goes on. So we see there's a lot of ways to counter this push in the defense, and pro teams are really good at countering this push. But I want to be fair, and I want to show you the one and only time that this bomb site was actually won by the attackers, because I think it was kind of brilliant. This is also a push run by Lagonis. It's not the same round I showed you at the start of these clips, but it's a similar idea. Note here, there's a bulletproof in the site, which will see through any smokes that get tossed out and can perfectly tell the rest of the team whether the plant is going down, whether the Osa's shield is still there, whether the Osa is planting, etc., etc. This bulletproof gets pinged out by Liquid, and it's something they've got a real concern about. Obviously, False is dead, constantly watching this camera, which was placed by Ashen. So Team Liquid, they use a lot of their utility here. Look that they've used all of their Candelas. They've used their Talon shields as well. The shield is still up. And at this point, Lagonis makes a call. He says they're going to be focused on this doorway for the rest of the round. What if we just completely change our push? And with Lagonis making this call, the entire team rotates around the hallway and starts finding frags on players that aren't expecting a push from this direction. First, it's Iconic inside a break room, completely caught off guard by this, and then Ness continues to push even deeper to kill Ashen right after that. They're not using the Osa shields at all to get a plant down. They saw that their push wasn't going to work because there was still good utility on the defense. They just used those Osa shields as a distraction, and then they went and planted on the complete other side of the bomb site. This is a great call from Lagonis, and they do eventually win this round. Of course, 4v1 post-plant. Hard to lose it at that point. Now, it's not just being done because of the IGLing. Obviously, Nesk played a fucking fantastic round there too. But I think it starts to hint at the biggest strength of Osa, and that is when she's not the key focal point of the round, she can be a good distraction. She's really good at drawing people's attention, and if you don't have to actually rely on the shields to get the plant down, oftentimes you can convert rounds off of that. So that's all the clips I have for Oregon on Armory Locker's archives. A very unsuccessful bomb site, but the first one that I had really, that caught my attention as an Osa site in particular. The next bomb site is one that we've actually watched a couple times since the Manchester Major, and that's Clubhouse Basement. Again, please ignore the fact that it's an old photo. Clubhouse Basement was played 4 times throughout the Manchester Major, and it's one that Osa, I think, in theory, makes a lot of sense on. Statistically, it's still really bad. 1 win and 3 losses was all that could be mustered for Clubhouse Basement for Osa attacking teams on this bomb site. And there were a couple of key teams that really liked this push, and a lot of teams that just didn't want to run this at all. I'm going to show you what I think is the best example of a classic Osa push where everything goes almost right. At least it goes right until the end. And the best example of an Osa push on this bomb site I could find was from Team Cruelty, which kind of tells you all you need to know about this push. But let's watch it. So it's going to be a kitchen drop. Matumbo uses his nades to spam out back armory and force any players back. He drops with the shield so that he can't get shot as he drops. There are some Toxic Babes, but he can back off out of those and start his plant. More Toxic Babes come out, and then he's got to rotate even farther back, but he can take the shield with him, and he's still in a strong position. I want to note at this point, too, oftentimes you'll see the Ash Wall get opened up, and Osa players walk down the main stairs to get to this exact same position Matumbo's in. Whether you drop the hatch or come in here, the push at this point is pretty much the same. So Matumbo gets in position to try to plant, and notice all the things that start to go wrong. Ashen, way up here, is starting to run past, and you know what? We got to shit on Ivan a little bit here. Horrible cover, as Ivan just lets Ashen sprint on past and kill Matumbo mid-plant. But this push is not over just because Osa died. Her shield is still in place. So somebody on Cruelty is able to take lemons and try to turn it into lemonade. Ivan eventually does his job, kills Ashen on the cover. At this point, Pyrox starts to run down the main stairs and tries to retake the position to plant behind the Osa shield. He'll move down this way, and it's a man advantage. Cruelty should have the lead in this round. Ivan's still covering from above. They're going to get back on the defuse kit. Here, Rovy's going to open it up. Sorry, not Pyrox. And he just has to make it past this doorway, which he does. He's in position. Osa is all the way back to plan. But there's still a C4 that can come out. And in this case, the C4 didn't actually get the kill. He tossed the C4, which forced Rovy to get off, and then that allowed Forrest to get the kill from Dirt Tunnel. But it's another thing that goes wrong in this push, and at that point, it's too far gone. Jane, I know, is kind of nasty with it, and they do close out the 2v1 as well. Notice now, of course, the C4, the shield is gone. He can't plant. It's over.
So at this point, SSG go further away.
So it still doesn't work, the push, but I think that kind of shows you what the plan was for this execute, right? You drop the hatch, you use your nades to clear out back armory. They just had bad cover. I think the biggest problem with this push in general is there's so many failure points. I think if you play it perfectly, as Team Cruelty did not, the push makes a lot of sense, and in theory it works, but you've got to worry about the C4 coming from back armory. You've got to worry about Toxic Babes. You've got to worry about somebody just sprinting past your kitchen cover and shooting your planter in the side. You've got to worry about somebody coming back up through Ashwall themselves and stopping on the defense. And to show you it's not just Team Cruelty being Team Cruelty, the worst team at the major, I'm going to show you another example of a pro team skipping one of these steps when they go for the exact same execute. This time, it's Mentalist. It comes right at the start here. It's again going to be a kitchen drop, but Mentalist here is forgetting to use his nades. He's not spamming back armory with these frag grenades like we saw Mutombo do. So when he drops with the shield in front of his face, the shield leans out of the way and he just gets killed by the Warden, who's able to avoid the flashes. A great play from Good Boy. Again, it's just one of the steps that gets skipped. Another problem with this push. Again, it is a mistake on the attacking side of team, but it's another mistake that goes hard punished. They lose this round. I don't want to show you the end of it. I think it drags on for a while, but they don't successfully win this. Just like on Border, I wanted to show you the one and only time an Osa push actually won, and it was actually later in this game. It was also by Bleed Esports, and you'll notice they adapt their push a little bit here. In reality, they decide that this kitchen drop is just not going to work for them, and they choose to drop the Moto Hatch instead. I don't think this is a bad push by any means. It's just not really focused on the Osa. The Osa doesn't have a huge amount of impact here overall. The blue push, despite being down at the start, is going to go really well. Reaps gets a kill. Mentalist does frag as well, but through no help of the Osa. Then he does bring out the shield eventually here from Mentalist, and maybe it helps him get a little bit of intel. But I think ultimately, even... Hello? Oh, this is a stream issue, unfortunately. This is not my end. Yeah, the VOD just stuttered here live, so there's nothing I can do. You see, he avoids dying there with the shield, but even if he had died, his teammates find all the kills. Aspie gets this one, Turd gets that one, he plants 1v4. Ultimately, it is a round win for Osa, but it's not particularly because of the Osa shield. Again, this is just how the VOD is. There's nothing I can do with the quality issues here. So next, we're going to move on to the third bomb site of the big three. I think that bomb site, in theory, makes sense, but there's a lot of mistakes, and no pro team really did it that successfully. The next is a bomb site that is not super popular and we'll probably never see again after the summer because it is on the map that is being taken out of the pool. I'm, of course, talking about Meeting and Kitchen on Oregon. And this is going to be the first bomb site that we look at where we actually find multiple wins for Osa. This bomb site, we saw 6 Osa appearances in the Manchester Major, and 2 of them were wins. That's still a 33% win rate, which is not very good overall, especially on one of the more attacker-sided bomb sites in the game. This bomb site's typically got an attacker win rate. I actually don't know it off the top of my head. It's above 50 for sure. It's around 60, I would bet. But this is one of the weakest sites that we have on Oregon, and the Osa pushes weren't that successful. So I want to show you, as we often do, a very typical Osa push, and I think this was most commonly brought by PSG talent. This is very old school as well. You probably know about it already, but just in case you don't, this time we've got Ryder playing the Osa shield. He's going to use his the first goal of the Osa is to clear out the max stage, currently being played by Hoven, and PSG talent do a great job of that. They drone out the mute, and then from T3, Ryder actually himself swings on in and gets the kill onto Hoven. So far, an extremely successful push with the Osa. In fact, I do think they win this round. I can't remember. But regardless, he does that, and then he sets his shield up here in attic so that his teammates can cover the attic hatch from up above. He then works his way down the staircase using the Osa shield to keep himself safe, which, as some shots go out his way, works successfully. He plays the main stairs until this exothermic charge can go off and they can open the wall, which might have just gotten impacted. No, they're opening it now. There they go. And with that opening, the Osa now has her Q to start making the move to get into a plant position. Notice the Osa, again, also bringing frag grenades, which are very effective on this site, dealing with the Kiba barriers, forcing players out of strong positions. There's the sandbags corner, of course, on this site with the drone hole, which can be really effective. They do lose some bodies. The position Reaps is playing right here can be countered out by frag grenades. It can also be countered out by Capitao, which is being brought currently by PSG Talon. And finally, it seems like Ryder is in position where he feels like he can push on in. He uses the shield to get down, and there's the Capitao to counter the sandbags position. He could use the Osa shield to get into his plant position behind the table. He could also just leave the Osa shield up for his teammates in the post plant. I think in this round, I actually don't remember what happened in this round. They might still lose this round as well, but I think they win it. I believe it stays in his pocket for the rest of the round, and he just gets into a plant position and eventually finishes it off. Yeah, he pushes deep, gets the kill, his teammates frag as well, and gets the plant down with the Osa shield in his pocket. A really standard, traditional push with Osa, and it's good. It's good in theory, it's good in practice. There's nothing Bleed can do here, or, you know, maybe there are some things, but they fail to do them, and they can't stop the plant. The cover from above on attic is still helpful. I don't think it was really contested too heavily, but despite Turd's skill as a player, he's not able to clutch the 1v3. The post plan is too tough. The Osa did its job perfectly, and they will eventually go through and win this round. Good finisher by Royboy. Now, the next clip I want to show you is the exact same push from PSG Talon, except this time they're playing against FaZe. And in particular, they're playing against FaZe a lot later in the tournament. So FaZe, the great team that they are expecting this specific Osa push, and they've brought a brilliant strategy to counter it. You see, FaZe Clan have brought in the Bandit. It's a 5v5, and they're using their Bandit to Bandit trick the attic wall. You'll see KDS work this Bandit trick top floor, and with this attic wall closed, that means the attackers can never get control of the attic hatch. They have EMPs, they toss it down, but they have no answer to the Bandit trick. Successful from KDS. Again, this comes later in the tournament, so KDS fully expected this. They toss out more EMPs, but his Bandit batteries are still there, and they can never get the wall open. And failing to get this wall open essentially means this push is just completely impossible. Because without this wall open, you can always get denied from up above. They expect the Bandit to have a C4. Of course he does. It's not going to be a safe push no matter what they try to do on that execute. So at this point, some Osa players would try to pivot, try to make something else happen. But there's just nothing that they can do to actually make this push successful for them. So what they end up doing, I think this is quite smart from PSG Talon, they give the defuse kit over to Royboy. They actually pivot their entire push. They now decide we're going to full clear top floor. Ryder himself says, I'm going to stay in attic. I'm just going to be the distraction. Not dissimilar to what Lagonis called for back on border. But PSG Talon have to completely change up their strategy. And one of the disadvantages we see with Osa, and you'll see this on some other bomb sites going forward as well, is when you're trying to actually adapt. When you're trying to go to a backup plan, a plan B, it's really tough. Because to make Osa pushes work, you often have to put all your eggs in one basket. You have to do everything in your power to focus on this one specific strategy. Osa obviously is not great in other situations, but often you're bringing Capitao or Smokes or Glaz or whatever it may be alongside this push, which can be difficult sometimes to pivot to other pushing directions. Again, I think Talon do a pretty good job. This is maybe Ryder's biggest misplay. He tosses a nade at the kitchen window, and it kills Misa, which just kind of turns this whole round into chaos. And I think it kind of shows what can happen to a lot of teams when the Osa play doesn't go according to plan. So a good counter by FaZe, but it's also only possible due to the fact that they fully expected this Osa push before it came out. Our next clip is another counter of this same push, but it's a bit more traditional. This time, the push is again going to be from Lagonis. And instead of trying to go for a crazy bandit trick or anything, SSG just say, fuck it, we're going to play a little forward. We're going to play a little aggressive. And Jane, I know this is a masterclass round from him. Pay attention to the way he plays this round. His movement, his aim, it's all perfect. But I do think it kind of exemplifies what to do when there's an Osa. Because when Osa is sitting up on this tower, she can't actually trade or cover her teammates. It's very hard for her to actually move out of this position, get a kill, and that meant that Ness gets completely caught off guard. He's got no teammates with him. Jane, I know, just pushes up and gets the kill. A little bit of aggression immediately throws this round off balance for Team Liquid. And just like with PSG Talon, that doesn't mean the push is entirely over. But Jane, I know, continues to play aggressive, continues to challenge this Osa, and much like the way you would want to play against a Monty back in the day, not new Monty, mind you, but the way you'd play against a Monty traditionally, you can play against this Osa by not really respecting it, not expecting the Osa player to really be able to get kills on you, and not moving out of important positions. We see Jane, I know, able to completely abuse this push, gets 1, 2, 3, and 4 kills to end out the round. A masterclass for sure, but just a little decision when it comes to positioning. You know, I think in most pushes, that's a pretty bad position. You can get nade out. You're in a really tough spot. But against the Osa, you're free to play that spot with a little bit more forgiveness. You know, there's fewer players on the board that can actually punish that position because Lagonis is so often behind his Osa shield that he's isolating fights really well and able to get away with the 4K that round. I want to show you one more clip that can demonstrate the lack of adaptability. What's up, Fresh? It demonstrates the lack of adaptability with Osa. And I think this is the only round that Cyclops brought Osa, and it's pretty bad. So in this round, Cyclops are bringing Osa to the meeting room bomb site, and for whatever reason, they're deciding they don't want to go for the traditional Osa push. They're deciding we want to clear top floor with Osa. Whether that's because they saw something they didn't like. I believe Bride is playing tower stairs, so maybe they think it's going to be too hard to clear him out of that position. They try to pivot with their strategy. And Osa just doesn't do things very good other than the one thing she's made to do. Shirip in this situation tries to play Osa as if it was a Monty, but Osa's not a Monty. And with the angle beside the shield, Saltov finds the kill, and Shirip immediately goes down, making the Osa a complete waste of space. And I really think this is, and we'll talk about this when we talk about the buffs, one of the biggest downsides with Osa. If you could bring Osa and play her kind of like a Monty, I think she'd have more uses when you have to go to a backup plan or when you want to pivot. But she's just a shitty fucking Monty. She's so bad at doing what Monty wants to do. And for that reason, when you try to use Osa outside of the traditional plant or distraction type plays, she's very, very poor. Funny enough, CAG win this round. 4v5, they actually do convert it, and this is the second round that Osa wins on this bomb site. It's quite long. They actually do a pretty good kitchen drop here, where Anaton kills Efak. They have good vertical pressure thanks to some of their, they don't use good breaching charges. Honestly, it's tough to say how BDS lose this round. This feels like a round they should not be winning, but sometimes in the late chaos of Siege, shit just happens. Users can't win the fight. It's honestly great play by Black Ray to get off there. Black Ray gets his second by getting off the plant. Saltov in the 1v3 actually loses this. Now, I would argue the Osa had zero impact in helping them win this round, but nonetheless, it counts for the statistics, so I want to be honest. Finally, we're going to move on to our fourth map, and although we're looking at 5 bomb sites today, we're looking at our final map. Because there's one map where Osa shines more than any other. There's one map that is inarguably the home of Osa, where not just one random bomb site can be effective, but 2 random bomb sites can be effective with Osa. It's not a map that we've talked about yet. It's the map that Chad is already calling out. We're talking about Bank. And many people, when you talk about Osa, specifically when I talk about Osa, because usually I'm shitting on Osa, will bring up Bank as the one map where she actually has some value. And although there's one bomb site that you're probably already thinking of, there was a second bomb site where Osa was brought more than 2 times, thus fitting our qualification of looking at the bomb site. That's actually Bank top floor. This is the least played map of the quote-unquote Big 5, or least played bomb site of the Big 5 that we're going to be looking at today. It was only played 3 times as opposed to Border and Oregon and Clubhouse, which were all played more than 3 times. But unlike Border and Oregon and Clubhouse, it actually has a positive win rate. 2 wins and 1 loss on Bank top floor. It's the smallest sample size we're going to look at. But not only does it have a good win rate, it was played by 3 different teams. It also has what I think was the single best Osa push of the entire major. Chat, can anybody guess what player, in my opinion, had the single best Osa push? We've not looked at them so far, of the entire major. Kane's guessing Envy Taylor. We're not looking at him for this bomb site. Iconic, a good guess as well, but not true. In fact, it's not, because Iconic doesn't even play on this bomb site, or doesn't even play Osa. Of course, the answer is Fish O Guy. Let's watch the Fish O Guy masterclass of Osa, and it's not just the Osa in this round. Everything goes well. This is a CEO window execute, which Bliss do to perfection. They're down 6-2 to BDS in this game, but they swing in with Fish. He's in successfully. They've got Zofia with stunning from the windows. They've got Wettables popping off with smokes. They've got a player in the basement trying to take down those players who could potentially deny from below. Everything goes perfect for Bliss in this execute, and they win this round. It's not particularly close. The smoke stopped the denial from Janitor. They had a player down below to stop the vertical denial. I don't think it was a player below. Sorry, it was Oda on the windows who stopped the vertical denial. Sajin came in with the impacts of Zofia. This was a perfect push from Osa, and I really think this push, it reminds me of the Clubhouse push, where in theory it's really, really good, but I think it's just easier to execute than the Clubhouse push. It's simpler, it's a little bit more standard. It is maybe more susceptible to early round aggression by jumping out of windows in ways that Clubhouse is not. But if you're ready for that, or if the defensive team doesn't go for that, I think this is a super solid push, and I don't really have anything bad to say about this style of push. Part of the reason why I don't have anything bad to say about this style of push is because no other team actually ran this push. Now, Osa was brought 3 times on this bomb site, but both other pushes didn't come in through the CEO windows like you might expect. They instead came through top square. And this is, I think, the other successful way to use Osa on this bomb site. We're going to watch it get played by FearX, and it's actually Demic who rocks it in this round. And I just want to kind of point out this position. First and foremost, this is not a quote-unquote Osa push. Yes, Osa is in this push, but the star of the show of this execute is Nova on the Blitz. Osa is not being brought with the fuse kit. Osa is not the main point of focus. Much like that round from Lagonis on Border, Osa is simply here to do a side job, and you'll see this commonly on Bank. Osa is watching the flank from bottom square. You see Demic has a great view of all bottom square, able to fight really long angles. And as I play this round, there's not a whole lot to say about the Osa. You know, fires some shots back, but at the end of the day, Nova's going to sprint through this bomb site, get like 2 kills, I think, while his teammates get even more kills, and it's really just a great blitz play. But I still think the Osa is providing value to this push in terms of flank watching and stopping anything aggressive from happening from the defense from down below. I think Demic actually does die in this push, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, technically the KD isn't really great for the Osa here. Yeah, he eventually abandons his shield and just tries to play behind the blitz, as you kind of should here. But I don't think the Osa is detrimental here. I think it works with the rest of the push. You need a good blitz player for sure, but Osa plays the blitz really well here. End of the day, I think you could even adapt this to where maybe the blitz makes the space and then Osa goes for the plant regardless. And you could still have somebody maybe watching from bottom square or something, and the Osa push could still work really effectively even if Osa was planting. But end of the day, it's a solid push. Nothing bad to say about it, and I was even wrong about the Osa dying. So top floor, all in all, is pretty good. I won't show you the last round on this bomb site, but it was a similar push top square. It was just less effective. I think it was run by E1. Their blitz, I don't think they ran a blitz. They just kind of lost all their gunfights playing top square. But it didn't feel like a bad push in general. And I think both ways that you can use the Osa on this bomb site have proven to be effective. All right, let's talk about the best Osa bomb site in the game. Bank Basement. This was by far the most popular bomb site to see Osa on at the Major. And it also had by far the best win rate. 7 plays, 5 of which were wins. That is almost as many wins as the rest of the bomb sites combined. This is by far the best bomb site from Osa by the numbers. And just in case you wanted to see why, I've got for you a great clip of an Osa garage push. And this one's from potentially former player of M80, Noodle. Noodle does everything right in this clip except for hit his shots. But we're going to forget the fact that he doesn't hit his shots, and we're going to watch the way he uses his utility. He sneaks up into garage halfway through the round. He takes a gunfight, which he unfortunately loses, and he gets himself into position. He then uses the nades on Osa to destroy the extremely common garage cam, and he sets up his deployable shield. Notice his team is just running a default Monty server push. Very standard, very good push. Osa, again, not the star of the show. So Noodle sets up his Osa shield and is just watching for the cross. Actually making the defense really scared to play here. Because although they didn't lose the gunfight to Noodle, they know he's there. Opening the space for Kino to open things up. Allowing the space for Cameraman to come through and hit the back. And eventually, late during the execute, when he realizes the rest of the defenders aren't going to cross his sight line, he simply steps up and starts to take these gunfights himself. Now again, does he win any of these gunfights? No. Maybe mechanically he's not doing the best in this round. He's currently still back in the shield. He will push up eventually towards the end of this round. But again, he's doing his job well. He's covering from garage. He's not the main point of focus for this execute. He's got Kino making space in the bomb site, obviously until he died. They had Cameraman hitting gold. They give Spoit the freedom to push forward here, and now it's kind of the second attempt with the execute. Notice, unlike on meeting on Oregon, they can play a backup strategy. There's Sajin taking out Noodle. They can change the idea of this push. Even though they have an Osa, they can try it again. They can go for a backup plan even after the Monty dies, and the push is still successful. Technically, even though Noodle lost his gunfight, he bought enough time that the defense didn't have the opportunity to come up and stop this plant. And as you should know, this is one of the hardest bomb sites in the game to win a post plant on. So this is great. However, what happens if the defense are actually pressuring garage? I mean, Noodle basically got it for free that round. Well, we can see what happens when Beast Coast run this. I think the key thing in this round is the teamwork. Diffuser is the Osa player pushing in through garage, but he's also got, I think it's Dokkaebi. No, it's not. I think it's Spirits with him. Maybe it's Gunner. He's got a second player with him, okay? And although he can make that space, obviously safely able to walk up, I think it was Gavin. I don't fucking know. Somebody walks on up, destroys the bulletproof for him, and he gets right back into position. Now, timing is a little unfortunate. He can't kill the player reinforcing, but the second Kendra saw him, he had to back off, and Diffuser has gotten all this space completely for free. You might have also noticed there was a drone up here that was helping Diffuser get on through the garage as well. And so again, we've got really strong pressure coming in from garage. Beast Coast, that's not the focus of their push. They don't have a Monty the same way that we saw M80 run this, but they're still dropping down gold. Their players have a little bit more freedom, and Osa's actually pushed very far up. Diffuser already at this point is in the bomb sites, helping out the rest of his teammates, denying that angle, and crushing ITB in the site. Everything goes well for Diffuser and the rest of Beast Coast in this execute. I think it's flawless. It's a flawless. So even if you don't get Garage for free, you can use your teamwork to help you out. Now, I think there is one danger of Osa on this bomb site, and that's the danger of stalling out. And we're going to see another round from Noodle on this bomb site, this time against Team Bliss. Notice we're already down to 50 seconds. Because M80 aren't using teamwork to take control of the Garage, they're taking control of Garage a lot later than what we saw from Beast Coast. And it's really, really slow for Noodle to actually get in here. He needs to wait for Spoit to push all the way down Master, or Main, I should say, to get that kill. And now we see Noodle starting to push up through Garage. Meanwhile, all the fights are going down. Noodle's really not having an impact for this round. And although Spoit is kind of fucking crazy, he's not able to kill every single player on the bomb site. Noodle eventually dies very late into that round. So if you can't actually get your shield set up in time, whether that's because you don't have the teamwork for it or it's because you're just too slow to get there, I think it can be a bit of an impactless operator and an impactless position, which in this round it kind of was. So ultimately, that's the big 5 bomb sites. And I think at the end of the day, we can say that Osa is definitely viable on 2 bomb sites. I think Osa is viable on bank top and bottom floor. Bank is the home of Osa. I liked most of the Osa pushes on bank basement. I liked most of the Osa pushes on top floor. Every other bomb site is very questionable. Border on archives, way too many counters, super low success rate. Clubhouse basement, similarly, so easy to make a mistake. Unlike border archives, I think conceptually, Clubhouse is a little bit more sensible. I think it does have more potential, but you've got to be perfect, and I don't think it's the easiest execute to pull off on that site. And then Oregon Meeting, one of those bomb sites where I think it does work, but it's very inflexible. It's hard to do anything else when you bring the Osa on that site. And I think because it's such a winnable bomb site, regardless, it's often not a site that you need to gamble on the Osa, right? You've got to gamble that there's not a bandit trick going on in Attic. You've got to gamble someone like J9O isn't playing aggressive on you close to the wall. And so it's kind of tough. I also want to keep an open mind about Nighthaven Basement. I'm not going to put it on as officially a viable bomb site for Osa, but it's a bomb site that Beast Coast ran twice, and they won it both times. And if you go watch those rounds, you know, I think Beast Coast played really well on it. But again, is it a good strat, or is it just the Beast Coast are the best Nighthaven team in the world? We'll wait to see if other teams adapt that strategy from Beast Coast, and maybe at Gamers 8, we'll kind of get the answer to that question. So that's the first 2 questions asked and answered. And question 2 is obviously the big one of this analysis stream. But there's another question. What are the counters of Osa? And I've kind of identified from watching those rounds 3 big main kind of play style counters. First and foremost, the obvious one, explosives. Impact grenades, C4s, toxic babes, Goyo fire, Tachanka fire, anything that traditionally denies a plant also denies an Osa plant, with the sole exception of shooting the planter. Osa doesn't counter any of the other ways where you can reliably stop a plant, so if you see an Osa in your ranked game, bring those impacts, bring the C4, make sure you're positioned in the right spot, because destroying that shield makes the Osa super scattered, super afraid, and really hard to find any success. The second thing to counter Osa is aggression. Remember when Ashen just sprinted past the cover on top of Clubhouse Basement and shot Matumbo in the side? Osa fundamentally doesn't have her gun up most of the round. Whether she's planting behind the shield, or whether she's just holding the shield, or whether she's just sitting behind the shield, often it's very hard for her to actually take strong gunfights. Because even if she's behind the shield with her gun up, she can't position herself very well most often than not. It's hard for her to aggress and get a trade. So if you could just push up, yeah, in theory, maybe you get countered, maybe you'll get caught. But if you don't have any impacts or C4s, this works surprisingly often. And if it can work at the pro level pretty often, it's going to work in your ranked game. Finally, and this is maybe less applicable for ranked, direct focused counters. Something like if you can be guaranteed that an Osa push is coming, strategies specifically designed to deny important parts of the map that Osa needs are super critical. And that again comes down to the lack of adaptation. If you can do something that specifically shuts down the Osa push the attackers are going for, there's a very low chance they'll be able to pivot that push into another successful execute. So ultimately, I would say the primary things that counter Osa are going to be plant denial, aggression, and strat-specific counters. So we next ask the question, How do we buff Osa? Thinking of those 3 counters, how are we going to buff Osa? Now, I don't think there's... I think two of these counters we can address with buffs. One of them I don't think we can. First of all, to address plant denials, I think buffing shields against impacts would go a long way. This is something Chad actually brought up to me a couple weeks ago, and I really liked the idea. Imagine if the first time you tossed an impact grenade at an Osa shield, instead of actually destroying the shield, it just shattered it. Now, instead of being able to toss one impact and the entire attacking push goes away, at least you have to use 2 impacts instead of just 1. Oftentimes, roamers are using impacts somewhere around the map, impacts that use for a large variety of things. It might also help players and teams that can hide their Osa until a lot later in the round. So I think that's the first thing you can do to this. Obviously, C4s would still counter the shield. Toxic Babes and Goyos would still counter the shield to an extent. But making it more resistance to impact grenades, I think, encourages smarter and more cautious play by the defense, and also just kind of gives Osa a break that she desperately needs. The second thing I think Osa could do, I don't think we're going to do much to counter the aggression. I think aggressive play is always going to be good to counter an Osa. But if something goes wrong on the Osa, it'd be nice to be able to have a backup plan. And I think by making the shield wider when you're actually holding it, we could accomplish that. If Osa just played a little bit more like old school Monty when she's holding the shield, I think all of a sudden she becomes an operator where if one thing goes wrong, the round is over, to an operator that can kind of adapt. I don't like shield operators any more than you do, but Osa's shield is basically useless when it comes to actually using it as a shield operator. And with Monty being way stronger than he used to be, Blitz being way stronger than he used to be, I think Osa running around with the shield isn't that scary. She's still got a crouch walk whenever she's moving to not get shot in the feet. It's not going to be as effective as Monty or Blitz, but it's at least a viable backup plan if, say, you can't get a wall open or you need to go for a different push than you were initially expecting. Making the shield wider while you're carrying it around would do a lot to just allow Osa to survive in situations other than specific plant-focused executes. So I've written them down here. Impact resistance to the nades or being wider when held, I think, are the 2 best ways that you could buff Osa immediately. Now we come down to the final question, and you could argue the sample size isn't the largest. You could argue that maybe nobody should be considered the best Osa because nobody plays Osa that often. But I still wanted to ask the question. Sorry to the UK fans in chat. Who is the best Osa player in the world? And I think there were a couple of options for this one. I want to give some honorable mentions. I think Ryder on PSG Talon often played the operator both often and well. I think that Ryder did a good job with a lot of the Osa plays, but I also remember Ryder nading his teammate and the chaos that sometimes happened when the Osa plays for Ryder didn't go according to plan. So I'm not going to give the number 1 spot to Ryder. I'm also not going to give the number 1 spot to Hot and Cold, who might be a weird pick because we didn't see much Hot and Cold clips here. But Hot and Cold actually brought Osa a lot through the Manchester Major. He just didn't really bring the operator on very traditional sites. So he was very creative with the Osa, but I mean, you saw the win rates with Osa throughout the bomb sites, not in the top 5. His win rate wasn't amazing with it, and because we didn't specifically analyze any of his rounds, I'm not going to put him in for this list, because he's usually using Osa more as like a surprise pickup or something that the team specifically is stratting for. Instead, I'm going to give Osa the number 1 Osa player in the world title to Lagonis. I think Lagonis was the best Osa player for a couple of different reasons. Number 1, I think he was very good with his utility. Remember how he's putting down both of his claymores in this round, and he's not putting them directly under the radio window where he could get run out and undied. He's specifically putting them around the corner because it's a little bit safer. I don't think there's any player that used Osa's utility more deliberately and more cautiously than Lagonis did. He used it super, super well. I also think he just understood the weaknesses of the operator more than any other player that I saw, being able to call on that one Oregon push that, hey guys, this push isn't going to work. Let's change this up. Let's go swing around the side. Let's use these shields to distraction, was really, really effective. He still did have some blunders, like, you know, his push on Oregon meeting wasn't very successful. I think his overall win rate was still like 33% or something on the operator. But nobody had an operator win rate above 50% if they played the operator more than once. So that's just the way that it is. I think I do want to give it to Lagonas because it felt like the rounds he lost, especially on Oregon meeting, weren't his fault. It was usually just his teammates losing gunfights. And I still think his Osa play in particular was really strong. And I'm a Liquid hater, but you got to give the credit to Lagonas when it is due. In conclusion, Osa still sucks. This operator's bad. I don't think she's very good in 90% of the situations. I think ranked and pro players are playing her way too much. I think I'm right. And my intuition was correct. But at the end of the day, maybe there are still some scenarios where Osa makes sense, particularly on bank. So thank you for watching my presentation. I hope that you liked it. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that you are now also an Osa hater. I hope Ubisoft will listen to my ramblings and will please buff this fucking operator because I think she's dog shit. I will be taking all questions now that we're here at the end, and I'll also be putting the music back on. They're only bringing her in place of Monty. I don't think that's true. I think on some sites that is true, but I think that Osa's pushes, especially on the sites where she's most common, such as border or bank basement, they're not really running her in place of a Monty. And there's a ton of bomb sites where Monty's really good, and we saw nobody bringing in Osa. Some bomb sites that might be true. But I think a lot of the situations we saw really Osa specific strats where Monty just wasn't really used in the same way. She's fine being situational. I would agree with you, but I think that I agree she's fine being situational. But I think right now the situations is like literally fucking one bomb site in the entire game. Maybe 2 for bank top floor, maybe 3 for Night Haven basement. That's it. That is too few situations. And I also think you can buff her in ways where she's still situational. Specifically, the impact change would be huge. Are we playing Siege now? No. I don't think her pick rate would go crazy if you gave her an impact buff or the shield widening buff. We'd have to watch it and find out, but I don't think either buff would make her go crazy. Because she's still very incapacitated when she's using her shield. She, like, doesn't have a fucking gun. And unlike Monty, in his current state, she can't, like, walk at people and kill them. Right? That's the problem with Monty and Blitz. Yeah, they don't have guns, but they still, like, walk at you and kill you and force you out. If an Osa is trying to, like, push you out of a room, you just, like, look above her and shoot her in the head. Osa, no, unless you like completely reworked her, I don't think Osa will ever be the same as Blitz or Monty. All right. I don't want to play any Siege tonight, but I am down. We've only been live for an hour and a half. I am down to VOD review. I kind of wanted to watch, I kind of wanted to watch Wolves versus ITB for 2 main reasons. Reason number 1 is because Kangaroo Kenny came into my chat like a week ago and begged me not to watch it because they played really bad. And reason number 2 is because I actually didn't watch that game live. And I haven't watched a single game of Wolves with their new roster. So I kind of want to watch ITB versus Wolves. It's a 7-4, 7-4. It's not going to be too long. But I think it's a good game, and I think it's a game that will teach me a lot, because I haven't watched it. Watch a Liquid game? We've been watching Liquid games all week. Well, we watched one this week. Thank you for the hydrate. I'll even give you another hydrate off that, because I'm super sweaty. I hope you like the analysis stream. I'm going to be doing more of them. That's kind of the content I want to be making when there's no VOD reviews. I find I have a lot of fun making that type of content. And viewership is pretty good. Not as good as when we're, you know, watching Esports World Cup, but not bad. I'm putting a fan on. I'm sorry if it's loud in the microphone, but I'm literally dying. So you're going to have to deal with it. I don't think I want to take notes or anything for this. I mean, it's been announced I'm not working Esports World Cup. But we